How's it, everyone?
Hello.
Hey. Welcome to the first Off the Lips of 2025. Thank you. This week is an interesting one. José is, I always say this, sorry, the most Irish-looking Ecuadorian I've ever met.
Yeah.
He's currently staying with us at the co-living, at the co-living house, and I started chatting to José and found out what he did, which is fascinating because for any of us that have worked at a company that does billboard advertising, certainly my experience is it's one of the hardest questions to answer is how effective is a billboard, because they're usually big and very expensive, and marketers always try and measure how effective that spend is, but it's really difficult because it's impossible to track, not like clicking on a website. And so that was always one of the biggest issues for us, and that we could never solve. That was maybe 10 years ago now. And so I was really surprised when I met José and discovered that there is actually a way to track, there is now a way to track how effective a billboard is. And I was curious, and that's how I roped you in. Yep. Not great timing, but hopefully it stops soon.
Should stop.
To talk about your journey and how this works and the company that you run, if that's cool.
Yeah.
We'll go for 15 to 20 minutes, or 15 minutes as always, and then keep your questions for the end. Although it's pretty relaxed. If you've got something urgent, I'm sure you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for it. Thanks, José.
All right, sounds good. Hi everyone. My name is José. As he said, I'm from Ecuador. I do live in London, which kind of fits better the looks in Ecuador. But yeah, and I've been working in this industry in the out of home very by accident, kind of. Like I started around 7 to 8 years ago. I was coming out of uni in London, met through a friend of a friend this company that in the US was doing something related to this. It was actually a different idea. They were putting like screens in the back of backpacks and giving it to students to walk around town. That's kind of how the company started with another founder. And after doing that for like a year, I was kind of helping them in some other stuff. We realized that the interesting part was, how do we know if this works, right? So of course, like the out-of-home industry, I always thought about it as quite boring. If you think about it, it's like billboards, like kind of very old school industry. Like it's probably one of the oldest methods of advertising there is, even before like newspapers and everything. It's already registered companies having billboards. I think from the 19th century, like 1850, there's already companies in the US just doing this, like putting posters and stuff. So I always looked at it as quite boring, but of course this is changing, right? It's been always it works. That's what everybody knows. Everybody agrees. That's why it keeps existing, despite of all the evolution of all the other channels. Everybody knows it works, just they don't know how much. But they still do it, especially the big ones, the big brands, and they're never going to drop out of home. It's still kind of like 10% of their budgets go towards outdoors. They put it on billboards, they know it works, it builds branding, it's kind of like, it has a lot of advantages to other, you cannot block it, people don't have ad blockers for real life, so they're gonna see it, it's gonna be on their face, and you go by your day-to-day basis, you don't realize it, but you're constantly looking at this stuff. But obviously they need help, right? The industry needed to develop. Of course, everything changed with the internet. The internet came around. Of course, started very slowly. Overall, it took over, and it switched to companies spending their marketing budgets between a mix of billboards, TV, and newspapers. Then the industry, within 5 to 10 years, the internet took over 80% of the budget. So right now we're looking at all the brands. It's not working. Yeah. All the brands, everybody's putting the main budgets are going to the internet. And one of the main reasons why that is because it kind of gave birth to performance marketing, which is being able to measure absolutely everything, right? You know that if you're gonna go and you put it on a social media platform, they're gonna give you exactly how many people looked at it, how many people clicked on it, who are these people, a lot of details on it. If it's in the open internet, that's a whole different story. It's a whole different monster, but it's relatively the same. There's cookies everywhere. of course they're getting deprecated now, and it's moving into different identifiers. So there's been a lot of changes in that industry, but the internet kind of changed everything. It makes everybody say, okay, if I can start with $10, which was impossible before. You couldn't get with $10, you couldn't start in a newspaper or on TV or on a billboard. But I can start really small now, and they're still gonna tell me exactly everything that happened. So in that transition from the 90s to the 2010 that the internet kind of took over, the out-of-home industry also started thinking, okay, we went from being 30% of the marketing budgets to be 4, 5. So now we need to start thinking about how do we improve that part. And I think there was a couple of things that they're starting to do. One was they start getting rid of the posters, and they start putting screens. That was the first switch, because that's kind of like their way of like, we need to be a little bit more digital. Despite it's still something in life in the city, it's still somewhere physical, but it's already a screen. It's not going to be one poster, one advertiser that gets switched every month or so. It's going to be multiple brands going around in a loop in a screen, changing. So that was already the first change that they did. And that brought a lot of other stuff, because that started mixing everything with the internet, because it started to say, okay, now we have digital proof that the ad is running. How can we get data for the audience? Like, is it actually somebody looking at this, and how can we make this part of our overall strategy? Because brands like to look at everything as one thing. Doesn't matter if it's TV, it's newspapers, internet, it's billboards, everything should kind of be part of one strategy. But always outdoors was completely separate. It's like, we just put this aside because we know it works. It's great to have billboards in the main streets, but we don't know how much it works. We're going to treat it differently. Put a little bit of money there and leave it. So that's where we started doing this, around 8 years ago that we started helping companies. We started with the simple part, which was proving the numbers, which was, okay, we need to know how many. We need to count people. But there are multiple ways of doing that. Historically, in the main markets, when you look at Europe and the US, there's always like an association that takes the 3-4 bigger companies and does like a yearly research to put some numbers. It's very almost made up numbers. It's incredible how but it's the only thing that they had. It was like they would literally send a few people to make surveys to count people in a few places, and they extrapolate that data and say, yeah, this is what's happening in every billboard in the country. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but it was the only way they were able to do it. So when we came up, we started doing this, and we said, okay, what's the best way, the most accurate way to do it is with a camera. Right now, computer vision is probably the most developed or old form of AI that we had. It started from the 60s, the 70s. So the accuracy that you get from a camera, just put a camera on top of a, let me show you this. Put a camera on top of a billboard and let software just count if it works. You see? Okay. Guess it'll come up. But we developed that software. We started working with these companies. They already had digital screens, which was it's not working. They already had. It was no longer posters. It was already digital screens, which added a different level of complexity, because it's no longer one brand. You have multiple brands. They're changing every 30 seconds, and they're going around in a loop. So you need to know not only how many people were in front, but also how many people were in front in each 30 seconds block, to see which one belonged to each one of the brands that were going around. So we started with this. We started with the company say, okay, let's help you measure your digital inventory. The big companies have, obviously there are multinationals on this, but the big companies used to have, I have 1,000 locations that have billboards, and out of those I have 100 screens. Like 10% of my inventory is digital, but it generates 80% of my revenue. It's pretty much, it's the main thing that brings money to them. They use the other billboards kind of as like a refill. Like, I sell you the screens and then I put a bunch of billboards to kind of fill it up. So we started helping them getting the measurements for that. And this is sort of what they get. So they get We work directly with the owners of those screens to be able to collect that data from each one of their screens, mix it up with, there's different systems that come into play, the content management system, what's playing the ads in a loop. We integrate all of that, and they're able to see as simple as, this is a sample dashboard that we have, here are all my locations, I have them in here. I have all the campaigns that I ran through all of the, across my clients. So if I want to see what Samsung, how many impressions the Samsung campaign had, they just use the filters and that's it. They got how many people were detected in front. Of those people, how many people actually looked, so how many directed the look towards the camera. So you have a level of conversion, kind of like the equivalent of the click-through rate that you have online, the equivalent in the outdoors perspective. You have gender, age, analyzing the facial features, how long they are exposed to it, how long they are in front, if they look, how long do they look. So that gives a lot of information for the creative to know how to communicate a message well on a billboard. And if it's an outdoors, if a billboard, we're counting vehicles, what type of vehicle is it, if it's a car, a bus, a motorcycle, a truck, and kind of estimate the number of people that are around. So that kind of solves the numbers part. It tells you this is how many people are actually passing in front of that. And then there's a second stage that what we're doing now. We're starting to use location data, location data is something that has been used in the internet for quite some time. It's coming out of our phones mainly. It used to be a lot more less regulated than what it is now. So it used to be everywhere. Every website had cookies. Your device was being tracked everywhere. Now it's a lot more regulation in place, which is good. But basically, we're still being in some way tracked in some way. The main way that we're doing right now is it's information that's coming out of mobile apps. So every app that you use that is free, that's the way they make money. It's based out of location, so we literally go to the owners of the billboard and say, okay, give me the addresses of all of your billboards, like the latitude and longitude. And we create a circle around that, and that creates a geofenced area. And whenever a phone shows up inside there, it sends a signal with an identifier, an ID of our phone. It never knows that it's you, never know which person is it, but it's an ID that it's linked to our phone in the internet. So we're able to say, okay, this is how many people actually showed up. It doesn't track 100% of phones. Most likely it's around 15 to 20%. But what we do with that identifier is then we take it and match it to other databases, and we can tell what that phone has been doing online. So what kind of content it consumes, what kind of apps it uses, what kind of build profiles out of these people to end up with dashboards like this. So, for example, we have a client in Mexico that has around 2,000 billboards all around Mexico. We end up with millions of mobile phones detected. We know roughly how many times that same phone is impacted by the network, by the same by the same campaign. But we end up with this type of information. So you end up saying, okay, this is roughly the income levels. You have generation, you have interest, which is based on the content that you consume online. So it kind of categorizes, we call it behavioral data. So it's based on our activities online. It builds profiles of those people and put them into boxes. So you have intent, which is based out of e-commerce data. So whenever you're buying stuff online, it's already recording that information, age, and so on. So that ends up with the media owner. If you're an owner of the billboard and you're talking to a client and you say, you know what, I want to build a campaign. My target, my brand, it's looking for people that are within that age range. They're into business software. We're a SaaS company that sells some software. Just apply the filters, and it tells you, okay, these are the billboards that have the most match of those people that pass through there regularly. So it's not directly tracking an individual, because the internet is different. The internet is, your laptop, your phone is a one-to-one relationship, right? It's always one person, one device. Here is different. Billboard has thousands of people passing. So the idea is to grab that, use it as big data, and start seeing what are the best locations to put those ads, run them, use a camera to verify how many people were actually impacted, and end up with a profile of people that were impacted and a list of IDs. Then the brand runs the campaign outdoors, ends up with a list of IDs, of identifiers of these devices that were around, And they can literally take those IDs, go to the internet, put it there, and retarget those people on their phones, retarget those people on their computers. Everything done through software, various platforms. This sounds more straightforward than what it is. Within that, to do this campaign run and retarget and everything, there's probably 5-6 different companies involved in that transition. There's a bunch of APIs being connected, data flowing from system to system, but and you end up being that goal. So that's kind of changing out of home in the way it used to be, because it used to be only for big brands that can spend millions, politicians as well, of course, they love out of home, but it used to be only for them. But now with all of these changes that you're doing, you can be a small brand and you can say, okay, I have $300. Like, I could put it in social media, but I know it's going to work for e-commerce brand. But what if I'm I don't know, a kombucha drink, and I sell it in a few supermarkets? Right now, there's a lot of new networks of out of home that are coming, putting screens in smaller supermarkets, making networks out of that. So you can choose that, go online, buy it directly without ever talking to the company that owns the screens. You go through a system, to a demand-side platform that is called. You put the target, this is the type of people I want. That shows you the locations. You buy the campaign directly from there, and it shows on those screens right in the supermarket at the best time that those people that buy those drinks can buy it. So directly next to the point of sale. So that's changing. Like before, you used to have to call the company, you own the billboards, sell me this, sell me 2 weeks, sell me a month, and go change the poster. Now it's pretty much you can book out of home pretty much in the same way you can buy Facebook ads and get a similar amount of details in terms of the audience and to use that data. So yeah, that's pretty much what we do. This is still early days, I would say. Still, this is getting more complex and more complex. With AI coming into play, that means more data is going to flow in to some data centers, and then AI is going to be able to analyze that data a lot better. So it's going to get faster, it's going to get easier to book. Even right now, you can go on Google. Google has a demand platform that you can go and buy TV, you can buy internet, you can buy everything from DV360. I don't know if anybody has worked with advertising online, but you can go and buy campaigns in every medium possible, and literally from any budget. And through Google, because Google has connected 4 or 5 different systems to it, you end up buying, probably if you go and buy a campaign that is out of home, you end up with a number of how many impressions that campaign had. That number came from companies like us filling that gap. And yeah, that is. Right now we're working in over 32 countries, have around 80 clients. We work mostly with the owners of those screens, so there's not a lot of clients for it. Normally every country has like 4 or 5 companies that apply to our technology, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow, that was way different to what I was expecting. I didn't realize that we were getting watched the whole time.
In a way, I mean, it's nice when you see it from inside, because it's a lot less creepy than what you think. Okay. Because you understand like how much there's a lot of gambling in place. There's a lot of like estimations. There's a lot of like, okay, I know that this kind of people are roughly there. Like the software is literally doing that, which already makes an effect in the campaign, but it's not really that it's tracking. Whenever people is like, yeah, no, the phones are listening to us, it's like, technologically speaking, we can do that, but it doesn't make sense to do it. It wouldn't be effective, so nobody does it. And so it's a lot less that tracking part. It really is not that much, but it is true that all of our devices have an ID. That ID goes somewhere in the internet, and that ID is following you around. But nobody knows it's you, but there's some information.
So because it's like an anonymized ID, like there's no popular regulations or any issues, you can still market again to that individual, send prompts to his phone without,
You can. So so there's a lot of regulation in place on how that ID is created, how that ID is transferred, and how that ID is stored. So there's a lot of those regulations. So you have pretty much, I think Europe was the first one, started with GDPR. That was the main one that kind of made the news. And now everywhere in the world has pretty much had their own version of GDPR that is the same. So every company that does that requires to make sure that everything is anonymized, everything is protected, and whatever is ID is consensual. So your ID is being shared because you accepted it. Especially like there's apps, whenever you download an app, it says app not to track, or well, it comes out of there. But there's apps that don't work without you sharing the location. You cannot have a weather app without sharing your location, otherwise it doesn't work. So it mostly comes out of those. Dating apps is another one. The location is key. So you need to share the location for the app to be able to work, otherwise you cannot use it, but you're giving your consent for that ID to be created and to send somewhere to be used for that.
How do you receive access to monitor what the individual does on his phone? Because you mentioned
yeah, that's a lot of data modeling. It's not as straightforward as to tracking that device and what it does. It's very big data sets. What they take is a lot of IDs. They are tracking activity online, and that ID keeps showing up in different places, in different websites. And what these big data models, what they do is recognizing patterns of movement and what people do, and create profiles that are estimations of what kind of people they are. Okay. So it's not as much as tracking every single one, but it's saying this single ID has showed up in these different places, and they qualify that it should be this category, and to put you into a box of potential what kind of people. If you're parents, if you showed up in different websites that are related to things like that, you get placed in a box that these are potential parents of young kids. It's a lot more like that rather than knowing exactly what to do and target you as a person, but it's placing people into boxes to be able to launch campaigns that perform 10% better than the other one. And that 10% is massive in media. Like it plays with very small margins. So, yeah.
I'm from Germany, and I saw in Germany you're not allowed to film in public.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that actually the case? And
yeah.
Like Germany is a big market, I can imagine, if it's working. And are there any areas in the world where it's a lot easier for you guys to do your business instead of others?
Yeah, absolutely. There's markets that is harder. The thing is, we play against a perception, because the way our solution works is there's a screen, right? You're the owner of the screens, and you have a computer there. That computer is running the content, receiving from the internet what needs to play. It downloads the content and is running on the screen. We use that computer to install our software and put a camera in there. And our software is not really recording. It's scanning the video as it's happening. And it's detecting, it's scanning, and it's just saving the detections, pure random numbers, and that's what gets sent to the cloud. So no images are being stored, not even at the computer. Even if you hack the computer, there's nothing there. And no images is being transferred. Sounds counterintuitive, but probably cameras are the most anonymous way we have to count people. Like those data coming out of our phones, they're all linked to an ID. With the camera, there's nothing. There's no way of you knowing that it was a person, like which person was it. So it's the counterintuitive, is the most private way we can measure audience. But perception-wise, people think camera records for obvious reasons. So sometimes we have to fight about perception rather than the technicality. As soon as we get the technicality, it's very easy to prove. It's like, look, this is how it works. But yeah, there's countries that is easier.
What work the best for you guys?
Sorry?
What regions work the best for you, or where do you have the most regulations that
we have pretty split right now. I mean, I think for us, all those regulations were very good because they finally gave us a framework to say, look how it works. It's not just what you think. So we have good coverage in the US and in Europe. We have a lot of clients in Latin America as well. Asia is quite good for us, especially for billboards and kind of traffic measurement. It's pretty split by. We don't have really a region that says like this works best. But I would say countries like Germany, the Netherlands, they're one of the most sensitive ones in terms of, like, there's sometimes companies say like, okay, I know that it works, it doesn't work that way, but I'm afraid of the backlash. I'm afraid that some journalist picks it up and say they're using cameras to film, because that can happen. So you have that part. But slowly it's going away. It was a much bigger problem 5 years ago than what it is now. People have understood and it's moving. Also, we recommend our clients, you don't need cameras in all of your locations. It's not that we're going to have a camera in every single screen and on every single location. ideally 20-30% of your inventory of the digital one should be covered with camera. The rest we can do it with location data and other sources, and then we can model that data to estimate impact.
I saw something recently, I don't know if it was a recent video though, that there was, I think it was maybe somewhere in the Netherlands, where there was an ad that also detected whether it was a male or female standing in front of the ad, and then changed the ad according to who was looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, we do that. We have a patent actually on that to to do that. Yeah, and it's not as, I mean, it's not as effective as I think, because imagine a screen that is just constantly just switching between other people. It's better to use data. Okay, I know that it's not about playing, if there's a male in front, play this. It makes more sense on days of the week at 3 to 5 p.m. there's this type of profile plan accordingly, so a little bit more, but yeah, it's doable. A lot of people do it, less than what you would think. And again, it's one of those things that sounds like it's super fancy, it should be done, but no, really, it's not that effective in real life. We can do it, yeah, but should you do it? I don't think so.
I bet if you've shown any of your customers that, or your clients, the effectiveness of a billboard, you know, so once off they get the assurance that it's working, but to make it like a recurring income for you, to offer it as a service, is it driven more by, for them doing targeted advertising, or like how do you make your business recurring?
For us, so the way we sell it, because we don't sell it directly to the advertisers. We sell it to the owners of the billboards, and we sell it as a SaaS model. So every camera that you activate is a license, and you pay on a monthly basis to keep that data coming. Then they use that data to back up their campaigns and sell it to the clients. So for us, it's recurrent. Every client that we have pays us a license for each one that is each location that has covered. So yeah, it's recurrent. We actually have here in South Africa, we work with SPAR. It's through a partner here, but we have a large network. I think they have like around 300 screens inside SPARs, and what our partner does is they provide them with the screens, they measure the audience, they get the data from the audience, the content, so they know how many detections each one has, but also what they do is they take the point of sale data of SPAR. So they know if you're a brand that sells within SPAR, you can buy space for ads inside their stores, and you can see if that reflected on more sales inside the SPARs. So that's a whole area that is developing now. It's called retail media, that it's purely advertising inside retail to try to sell more, because they already have, it's already people going there to buy stuff. So it's like the perfect place, like right there next to the point of sale. So you want like the last minute of influence that you get for somebody to buy.
Jonathan, do you have a question? So just, can I check if I understand correctly? It's technically possible if I walk past an iPhone billboard, a billboard for an iPhone, and then I go to an iPhone store and buy a phone, the advertiser can potentially know that I bought a phone because I saw
not that much.
Okay.
Not the buying part.
Okay.
The advertiser might be able to know that, for example, 1,000 people passed by that billboard, and 5% of them also showed up at these other locations. Or like the physical presence, because it's tracking your location. Right. That might be possible. To know that it was that person that bought, you would need to integrate also the system where you bought it in that store. So it's too far away. It's too far up. That can be done in like a SPAR, inside a SPAR, because that is connected. So you can know, it's like, I went to this SPAR 5 times a week, or like in the last 3 months I started buying this juice. And that juice apparently was running a campaign for the last 3 months in those screens. So when you were going there out or buying, you saw the screen, and that can eventually influence what decisions you make when you go grab. There's 3 different juices, but you've seen that ad a few times, and you don't realize it, but you grab that juice.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Let's take 1 or 2 final questions. There are.
Okay, I have one question for interest sake. I've seen that your software is the same, like product for any size of billboard and any location. Would you still like charge all the customers a different price?
So we have 2 different software. One that is whenever the audience is just people. So if it's inside a store or a shopping mall or like stations, airports, whenever there's no cars, basically, we charge them one price. And then if it's like a billboard that needs to count more vehicles and people in the sidewalks, then we charge another. So those are the only two solutions that we have, and based on that, we charge. And then there's the other product, which is the mobile data. That works a bit differently. That basically to be able to know if how many people pass by a billboard here, I need to measure all of South Africa. That's kind of how that data works. I need to buy the data for the whole country to know who passed by there. So the way we work with them is that we charge them a fixed fee per month to collect all of that data and organize it for their network. It's also recurrent, but it's just a one-time, a higher fee. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have the last question then, if there is no more. A question I normally ask everyone: how did you end up in JB?
It's a good question. I don't know. Has been on my list for quite some time. I don't know how it got there.
Okay.
But I tend to run away from the winter in London a lot. So as soon as the winter starts, I need to get out. I go back home most years, but whenever I don't go back home, I tend to look for a place like this. Small town, there's surf, sunny, and it's summer at that time. So it ticked all the boxes. And JB has a reputation. It's not that people know about JB.
It wasn't a billboard.
Oh no. No.
Probably was.
Maybe at some point. But it wasn't a billboard. I don't think so.
You found us on Instagram. We found you.
Oh, there you go. True. Now I want a discount.
That was great. Fascinating. Thanks so much for
All right.
sharing.
Thank you for the invite. Thanks, guys.